Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting picks. I'm your host, Professor Sides. That's my actual job title and last name, which is part of the reason why the mathematical model that I've built to predict various sports outcomes is affectionately known as Sideline. You'll hear more about the model during the course of this episode, set to cover select college basketball games scheduled to be played on Monday, January 2nd, 2023. You should here check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for some explanations, goals, full recommendations on wager scaling, where to find additional picks, and community rules. Always remember there are no locks in gambling, so Sideline parses its picks into two categories: plays and leans. The plays are good enough to blind back and profit in the long run, while the leans have been a little better than 50%, but not profitable as a collective. This episode will only cover what are determined to be the best or most interesting games of the day, but the results of the totality of recommended picks, the model plays, and all of the plays of the day over on Patreon, and anything I give out to the Discord chat can be found both on Betstamp and in the Google Sheet. All those links are in the show description. That Google Sheet also contains the full set of projections and picks on every single game. And for early access to those picks and projections, see the Patreon. Links in the crawler below and show description. It's also where you can access the Discord chat, which is the best place to get questions answered about these or other games, along with general fun. But as always, take what you like and leave the rest. Lastly, please understand that good and bad variance will occur, so much we'd like to see will be profitable each and every day. That is an impossible reality for any gambler. Cousin Jared, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. It's been a great week of college football. It's been a great week of college basketball. And so, here we are on getting everybody's hopefully either late Sunday night or early Monday morning started off right in the new year, giving you some winning college basketball picks.
Got some afternoon games here for Monday, as a lot of people, will be off. This will be New Year's observed for a lot of people. A lot of people off watching football and college basketball throughout the day. Most of the games at night. I think we're only going to cover one day game in this episode, but there's a lot of day games to be had and a lot of model plays in some of those day games. So don't forget to check out all of the model recommendations. That's the main where I feel like the model is the bread and butter, right? And the model plays is the bread and butter. We're just on here just talking about some of the stuff and talking about the model, talking about insights to the model, talking about what we've seen with our eyes. I mean, that's the bread and butter. So make sure you check out all the model plays. That's really where it's at. And our goal, hopefully we can do a better job of picking a subset of winners of those. But those have been pretty good picks. And it's we got some big games to talk about. That'll be some interesting picks. And then because you're going to close us up today with a doozy. I mean, the people I think really have a good one to look forward to as we're going to wrap up the show. It's going to be
all of the twisted individuals that appreciate when we talk about the bottom of the college football rankings will really enjoy the last game that we talk about today.
Yes, this is the Bowling Green, New Mexico State of our Monday here. But I know you are super eager to get to that. But before we do, some reminders: please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free, and if you turn on notifications, you won't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. I've already mentioned the Patreon, but check it out if you haven't yet. Lots of great benefits to be found over there above and beyond what we do here. $3 per month gets you full access to the plays of the day. For another 2 months, Patreon can get you access to that Discord chat group. And for $5 more a month, you get ad-free shows delivered to you earlier than the general public and immediate access to all of the picks before the lines move. Go to www.patreon.com/pickswiththeprofessor for more details. But even if you're not there, we're still thrilled to have you here. Let's get to it all on courtesy of BetOnline. Sign up link in the show description and current as the time of this recording on Sunday night. We're going to start off with the bigger games here. 6 p.m. Central, Rutgers at Purdue. The model is recommending a play on Rutgers. It locked in a pick at 8. It moved pretty quickly down to 7.5. The model still recommends a play at 7.5, and so that's what I'm going to lock in for the official show recommendation here, is grabbing the points with Rutgers. Rutgers is actually kind of good. I mean, I feel like for so long, Rutgers has been just they're good at home, but they're terrible on the road. They're actually like a really good team. A couple of different projection systems have them, in the top 15 of college basketball, which just a little jarring if you haven't been paying attention. But they're actually they have 4 losses, but actually a really good team. They are 8-5 against the number this year. Purdue is 4-8 against the number. And you could say part of that has to do with Edey being out, but part of it is I think that Purdue's a really good team, but maybe just a little bit overvalued and has just struggled to be quite as good as people have thought they were going to be. I'm gonna go the direction of Rutgers here as well. Like I said, I think they're the right side to be on here. Getting this many points, the model says it should be 5.7. This is one of those games where I think Purdue can win, but Rutgers can hang around enough. Got a lot of ways they can cover this one. Because the total of this one's 131.5. The model says it should be 126. So that's another angle for people to consider if they want to be invested in this under as well. But the last thing I'm going to leave you with here on this game is, the Big Ten's probably got some of the strongest home court advantage. We talked about that. If you give each team 3.5 points, which is probably pretty reasonable, probably what most of us are doing here for the Big Ten, if you take away Purdue's 3.5 points and you give Rutgers 3.5 points, this would imply that if this game was in New Jersey, it would be a pick'em. And honestly, with the way Rutgers has played, that seems about right. And I think I would say I'd probably be on Rutgers at home. And so 3.5 points being a good home court advantage, if you flip that and you get 7.5 here, it kind of makes sense to be on Rutgers. Obviously, Purdue's a really good team, but it's a lot of points for a good Rutgers team. So I'm going to grab the 7.5 there. Cousin Jared, what interests you about this game?
Well, Purdue not covering a spread in the past 7 games seems quite interesting. And if they're trying to get back on track, at least against the number, I don't think that Rutgers is the team to do that against. Like you said, Rutgers has been playing really well. If Purdue's going to kind of come back and start playing better than they have relative to the number, I don't think that this Rutgers team is the team to do it against. I think Rutgers can ugly it up to your point of Sideline making the projected total around 126. I think that Rutgers is going to be able to ugly this game up and keep it close. So, if this line was closer to like Purdue -3 or, a 1-possession game, maybe you could talk me into Purdue being the right side. But getting 7.5 points, I just think that's too many points.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should correct this. That total actually is 130.5. But I think that under is probably a good way to look in this one as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and make that an official recommendation for y'all and keep that in the record as well, going under 130.5 in this one. Again, the model says 126. You've got the model has slightly overestimated Purdue totals this year, slightly underestimated Rutgers totals, so it should be pretty spot on. And with a conference game, you've got the whole feeling each other out, slow start, that sort of thing. And really the bottom line is that Rutgers defense is one of the best in the country. And that's part of the reason why I think they can hang in there. We talk about correlated situations here. This is definitely correlated with grabbing the points in the under. Not quite as strong as in college football, obviously, with those big numbers, but there's still a slight correlation there of if Rutgers has their way and can limit how many points Purdue scores and ugly this game up, they've got a better chance to hang around. And that under has a better chance of hitting. And so Purdue's defense also not bad in and of itself. So you got 2 good defenses here. And so I'm going to grab the 7.5 with the Rutgers. I'm going to go under 130.5. So you got 2 picks for that one in one of the more entertaining games of the night. Also at 6 p.m. Central, Penn at Brown. This is a pick'em. And part of the reason we're talking about this one as an interesting game is there's not a lot happening in college basketball on Monday. But these 2 teams are decent. And it's a pick'em. And so at least it might be interesting basketball worth kind of keeping an eye on if you're interested in a good second half. Both these teams just really right around average. Total, this one's 136. Model says 135.6. Models actually overestimated both these teams on totals. So if I were to do anything, I would look under, but it's not a direction that I think it's worth investing in. The model locked in a play on Brown. It says that Brown should be a 2.1 point favorite. Both of these teams have been underestimated by the model. They've both been really good, and they've both been really good against the number. I've got that Penn is 8-5 against the spread, whereas Brown is 8-5. Also, there you go. Both of them 8-5 against the spread. So both teams profitable back. Obviously, one of them will win here, and one of them will lose. But again, the model likes Brown. Cousin Jared, you are on Brown, and so I have to ask you. I've been waiting for this moment. What can Brown do for you?
Well, what Brown can do for you is they can play a really good defense. So obviously I like this game, like Brown here because of what Sideline says. But when I look at teams that are relatively evenly matched, we're talking about a 2-point spread here. I try to look at like who has the best unit on the court. And I definitely feel like Brown's defense is probably that. I mean, you go down through their schedule and you look at some of the teams they've played and some of the points they've allowed. They give up 63 points to a Big Ten team, 51 points, 68 points to Michigan State, 58 points, 51 points, 60 points to Bryant, which seems impossible. I don't know how they did that. That needs to be like some kind of coaching clinic tape if you're only giving up 60 points to Bryant, 51, 63. Anyway, moral of the story is Brown's defense is really good. So not only does sideline say there's an edge, but if I'm just looking at it with my eyes, what the best unit on the court is, I think that's Brown's defense. So I think it's quite the deal here getting them just to pick them.
All right. Yep. Model agrees with you there. We're going to take Brown on a pick 'em. Also at 6 p.m. Central, West Virginia at Oklahoma State. This one might be the best game of the night here. You've got two pretty solid, and Rutgers Purdue are this one, right? These are the two, I think, runaway choices for game of the night. Two pretty good teams here in the Big 12. Oklahoma State is a 3.5-point favorite. And if you give somewhere between 3 and 3.5 points for home court in the Big 12, especially at a place like, down in Stillwater, Gallagher Arena, really tough place to play historically. Model says 3.3. So, I mean, the spread, the model, everything is a agreement on this that these two teams are pretty evenly matched. And Oklahoma State is getting about what we know that home court is worth, especially for schools of this caliber and a place like that that's tough to play. I can't really give you a side to pick on this one. I think 3.5 is a really good number. If I was laying a smaller number, I'd be on Oklahoma State. If you gave me more, I'd be on West Virginia. But instead, I'm going to go with the under 139.5. And the model says 139.9. So the model is saying it's spot on. But my angle on this one is simply that Oklahoma State's defense is really good. It's slightly better than Kansas State's defense. Kansas State just played West Virginia. West Virginia struggled to score there in Manhattan. West Virginia historically also another team with a great home court advantage and more struggling to shoot the ball on the road. And that's not going to play well in Stillwater. They may get hot and score a lot of points, and that's the type of thing they want. But on the road, it's tough to do that. And if Oklahoma State has their way, that home crowd has their way, which again, historically, that's been more so what happens. This is going to be a tight game, and it'll be a low-scoring game, and Oklahoma State's slightly more likely to win. That's why I said that I think the spread's really tough to peg right now. But it would stay under this total because Oklahoma State wants to get you into a rock fight. And I just think in Stillwater, that I think is the more likely scenario. So I'm going to go under 139.5. If this was in Morgantown, I would say the opposite. I would say, in West Virginia at home, they're going to be able to speed it up, and then they're going to drag Oklahoma State into a game that they don't like. And then West Virginia, I would say minus 3.5 makes sense. They're more likely to win. They should be small favorites because that's their style of game as well. So I think that home court really matters here. But I think they've priced it right with the spread. I just think they're missing with the total. I think this total is kind of more about if it was on a neutral court, but I'd shade the total a little bit lower here in Stillwater, shade it up a little bit in Morgantown. So the model has no view on this total, but I think under 139.5 makes some sense. Because Jared, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, so I'm sure that people love it when I just sit here and like read off scores off of a schedule, but I want to just read scores off a schedule for you and tell you how many points Oklahoma State has allowed to opposing teams at home this season. 58, 51, 53, 56, 61, and 66 to UT Arlington, which we were talking before we came on. That's kind of the what the hell game of the season so far. How UT Arlington and Oklahoma State combined for 143 points in a game is beyond me. But anyway, as you can tell through that list, Oklahoma State, that arena is just a really tough place for opposing offenses. They usually find a way to make the opposing team go cold from the field for extended periods of time. So I completely agree. If this was being played elsewhere, might not be a strong edge one way or the other on the total, but I completely agree with you playing at Oklahoma State. I think it's going to they're going to find a way to make this a rock fight and drag them into a low scoring game.
Yep. Another game here at 6 p.m. Liberty at Lipscomb at Liberty. Liberty is a 10.5-point favorite. The model says 11.4. The model leans Liberty. Liberty's been pretty good against the spread this year, going 7-4. If I had to pick a side, I'd lay it with Liberty. It's just a few too many points for the model and my taste, really. This is a game we're talking about because, again, with a lighter slate, you've got at least Liberty's a solid team. Lipscomb isn't bad. It's just a lot of points. If this does drop, and again, by the time you're watching this, the number might have dropped. If this drops into the 9.5, for sure by 9. If it gets to Liberty minus 9, that's a model play for sure. But at 10.5, it's just a little. I don't know, maybe 10. I'd have to plug it in and see. Maybe even 10 it would be a play. But it's just a lot here. Instead, the total though is really enticing. The total is 141. The model says it should be 136. That's a pretty sizable edge here. It's been pretty spot on with both of these teams. Lipscomb wants to play a little bit faster, but we talk about the better team tends to control the tempo. If you've got two teams of drastically different styles, talk about the home team maybe controlling the tempo. Liberty's the better team at home. They want to play this game at a snail's pace. I mean, they're no North Texas, right? They're no Charlotte, but they're not that far behind them. They play pretty slow. They do have a good offense. They've also got a good defense. Liberty should score a lot of points, but I just don't think Lipscomb scores that many points. I think that mid 130s makes more sense than 141. So I'm going to go under 141 in this one. And thankfully, if Liberty runs away from it, then we shouldn't have to worry about an overtime situation if Liberty takes care of business as such big favorites. What's your take on this one, Cousin Jared?
Nope, completely. You kind of took the words right out of my mouth there. Definitely feel better about that play based on the fact that the spread is so large. You're hopefully not going to end up in a situation where you got a bunch of fouls and free throws at the end of the game that are artificially inflating the total on this one. So I think anytime that you can take an under in a game where the spread is quite large, I think you're probably doing yourself a favor there.
It's the baby version of one of the totals that I gave out to the Discord chat. The only total I gave out to the Discord chat here on New Year's Day was the under in the Iona game. And I told them, I said, part of the math is Iona runs away from this game and, Iona wants to play fast. They're going to score a lot of points. And then when they get up big, it's just going to be a boring, nothing happening second half. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And so it's kind of the baby version of that. That Iona one, I think they were like 17-point favorites. Not quite the same here, but the difference is that Liberty just wants to play really slow. Like I'm surprised that Liberty is involved in a game with a total of 141 because they just don't want to play games at that pace to get to that many points. They have a good offense, but Lipscomb's, like I said, is just going to really struggle to score points. So kind of like I said, the baby version of that Iona situation here. Last one of these before we get to the overtime segment, 6 p.m. Central, Bellarmine at North Alabama. What should be a tight contest here according to the odds makers. Bellarmine's a 1-point road favorite. The model's locked it in as a pick. The model says that Bellarmine should be a 0.4 of a point favorite and has locked it in as a pick. And so at this point, your antenna should be going off, especially considering that we've got a 5-9 team on the road favored at a 9-5 team. And my answer to that is, well, the 5-9 team is just the better team. And records don't mean everything, especially in a sport like college basketball where everyone's not playing the same teams. It's not like the NFL, right? Where NBA where you're playing most of the same teams. The 5-9 team is better. It's just one of those situations where the algorithm is taking into account a lot of different factors with regards to how well each team's done, how they rate in different scenarios, and says that, even though it doesn't project an average huge win for Bellarmine, it still thinks that laying a point with Bellarmine is a wise investment. It would not lay more than a point. It does want that push protection there in case it does land one. This is as high as it wants to go. But if you're basically looking at a pick 'em, it thinks that Bellarmine can get the job done. The other thing I'll point out about this, and I point out this, we had a lighter slate a couple of weeks ago in one of these games that the model projection was really close to spread, and I just took it and ran with it. And the reason why I was similar to this that I'll note is that if you take the Ken Palm line, we talk a lot about Ken Palm and how his numbers are so great and how the bookmakers rely heavily on his stuff. And my model does not, partially because I don't want to use the same information that everyone else is using. That doesn't give us an edge, right? But I know what his number is, and his number on this game would be something along the lines of North Alabama by about 3. And so anytime I see a situation where Ken Palm's that far off from the line, I tend to want to continue to go the other direction because it tends to be a situation where there's something there that the odds makers know that just the model can't quite take into account, whether it's injuries, whether it's who's in and out, whether it's some stylistic thing, that there's other people that have modeled something and find something. I talk about this a lot, right? All models are wrong. Some models are useful. It's a saying in the statistics world. And that's the idea that none of these models are perfect. My model's not perfect. His model isn't perfect. And they all have their flaws and they all have their misses. And when his model misses by something like this, more times than not every time, there's no locks in gambling, but more times than not, when it misses in a direction, that's the direction you just want to kind of back. And so the model's picking up on some things along those lines, not that specifically, but along those lines, and saying, Bellarmine -1 is a good investment. So that's what we're going to do here. Total's 133.5. Model says 136.5. So maybe if you were interested in overplay would be warranted here. But given how slow Bellarmine plays, it's not something that I'm going to take. I'm just going to take Bellarmine -1. Cousin Jared, what is your take on this one?
Yeah, my take on this is that just North Alabama is not very good. We talked about them last time I was on the show. They have a propensity to give up quite a few points. I think that Bellarmine, you're kind of going to you mentioned the pace that Bellarmine plays at. I think that North Alabama giving up so many points is kind of going to enhance Bellarmine's maybe one, I don't want to say weakness, but maybe kind of deficiency in scoring points. And so I think that's really going to put this squarely in Bellarmine's favor. I think that just the North Alabama defense is going to be too putrid to keep Bellarmine down, and I think that Bellarmine's going to win this one.
Yep. And again, if it were at 133, that would be a play on the over according to the model. Just once that push protection on that number, we talk about every half point, every point matters. So pretty close to an overplay, but not one I'm going to officially make. Just don't want to get hit by the hook on that one, which takes us to overtime. We've got some afternoon delight for you here in a game that Cousin Jared and I want to talk about based off of some model insights. Just try to give people some interesting things to look at here. 12 p.m. Central, Holy Cross getting 13 points at Navy. Totals 133.5. Cousin Jared, I'm going to let you start off talking about this one here. Model says Navy -12 and says to take Holy Cross. It's a model pick. You're taking them as well. Tell us more.
Yeah, so Holy Cross is 5-1 against the spread in their past 6 games. But what I can say is I have been on the losing side of some of those Holy Cross plays as of recent. And the thing is to me, it feels like Sideline is kind of missing on Holy Cross a little bit because we ended up laying some big numbers against Holy Cross and it hasn't worked out for us. So I turn to you as kind of the person who kind of made this whole thing work. Is the model or Sideline? How has Sideline been doing on Holy Cross as of recent?
Yes, absolutely. For the season, I'll talk about Navy first. For the season, the model has pegged the margin of victory in Navy games accurate to within 0.3 of a point, which is insanely wild.
Yeah.
Holy Cross, it has underestimated Holy Cross by an average of 11 points per game, which seems really tough to do once we've gotten to about double-digit games for just about every team. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just underestimated. The Holy Cross isn't a good team by any stretch of the imagination, but they are not as bad as they've historically been. And just trying to play catch up. We saw the same sort of thing in college football with some teams, right? Where it was just trying to play catch up with just how good this team actually is, or just how bad this team actually is. And it's definitely trying to play catch up with Holy Cross is maybe the Kansas of college basketball, the college football version of Kansas, right? One of those started at the bottom, and Kansas was still not that good. They were still kind of a middle of the pack team, but that was a long climb for them. And Holy Cross is, started at kind of the bottom. Now they're still below average, but they've climbed a lot here. And like you said, the model's really underestimated just how good Holy Cross is. And he's laying the big numbers against Holy Cross. We've been doing that a few times, and it has not worked out well for us.
Yeah, and with the Kansas football team, it probably took till, I don't know, at least halfway through the season before Sidelines kind of started catching up to what the number should be. So maybe we would say in the next couple of weeks, you would see Sideline kind of catching up to where Holy Cross actually is as a team. Yeah. But until that time, I'm going to keep riding it. And if Sideline says that there's an edge on Holy Cross and it's been underestimated by this much, seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Model likes it. You like it. So we're going to play Holy Cross plus 13. And let's give you a double overtime game. I'm just having fun with these banners at this point. One more. And the reason these are overtime, just to indicate, these are not games that you should be watching, right? This falls squarely in the you don't have to watch them to make the monies, idea, because not games. I don't even know. You can actually watch a Holy Cross game. It's new. It's a noon Eastern or noon Central game or whatever. If there's not else on, whatever. But this one here at night, 7 p.m. Central, I don't know if it's on TV. Please don't try to find it. It's going to be truly terrible basketball. Arkansas Pine Bluff is getting 6 points at Alabama A&M. Cousin Jared, you picked out the biggest edge on the board here. Alabama A&M, according to the model, should only be a 2-point favorites. Instead, we're getting 6 with Pine Bluff. The model likes it. You like it. Tell us more.
Well, okay, obviously the first thing that caught my eye was the huge edge according to Sideline, of course, but diving into the numbers a little bit further, neither of these teams has been favored in a game as of yet this season. This is the first time that Alabama A&M has been favored in a game. I understand they're playing at home, But when there are two truly terrible teams playing each other, why am I getting 6 points? I mean, this just seems like way too many points in a game where anything could happen, and not in a good way, not like an exciting, anything could happen. It's just like, man, there could be one team that just does not show up in this game. And it feels like it's 50-50 as to which team that might actually be. So as we say a lot with the college football show, you do not have to watch this game. But I have no clue as to why you're getting 6 points against a truly terrible team in Alabama A&M. So take the 6 points in your pocket and just like get the score alert when the game ends. Don't invest any time in actually trying to find it or keep up with it. Just get the score alert when the game ends.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these SWAT games are not on television, and this is one of them that I think that's a good thing. Honestly, though, I can't answer your question for the most part. To go back to a previous segment, if you look at what the KenPom number is, KenPom's number on this is 6.5, 7, and so I think a lot. Again, the bookmakers. This is one that I think. There are so many games and there's so much data. At some point, I'd love to try to figure out why numbers are moving and try to make a predictor, because that would be really good if I could at some point, it like a side project, like one day I'd love to build a predictor that says, here's where the model disagrees and the numbers just going to stay there because we're just seeing something different than the rest of the market, and that's okay, and we're going to trust it, we're going to play it, right? But here's where we disagree, and based off historical trends, we think the number is going to move, so get this one early. This is one that I think would move because my hunch is, based off of what I've observed, and this is just observational data, so this is not, do not take this to the bank, but what I've noticed is a lot of times the numbers that move the most, where the biggest edges in the model happen, that are gone by the time you may watch this show. And this is again why $10 a month, you can get all the picks when I lock them. It's worth your investment, people. The reason why is it's the KenPom number, that the books have hung that KenPom number, and they've said, we're just going to kind of trust that, and it's off. And it just takes people like me coming in and saying, y'all are wrong. And the books learn that when the investment comes in, and they keep seeing investments on this team, and they keep saying, oh, we have to adjust our number. And that's why the number then eventually does move. So I don't know where this number is going to go, but my hunch is this one is going to drop and be closer. If I had to guess, I'd say closer to 4 by the time you get to tip. Again, the model says 2. I would be surprised if it fell that far. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think the number's going to come down a little bit, because I think they just basically hang a number near KenPom and just kind of say, we don't really know, he's got good stuff. And then again, the market will slowly drive it down, because I think the right side is taking the road team for the purpose you talked about. Both these teams are terrible, and who really knows what's going to happen? It's not drastically different than the bowls, what we did with a lot of those bowl games, right? I feel like half the bowls, we had such a great bowl season here. Half of them were, who knows what's going to happen? You're giving me more than a field goal? Sure, let's take it. And half the time those teams won, and some of the times the teams lost by like 2 or 3. So it worked out pretty well for us.
Yep, definitely agree. I feel like you're just letting everybody in on our secrets now.
I mean, to some extent, that's what people come here for, right? To learn the secrets. Yes,
to learn the secrets, and also you can just like look at what the plays are, and you can kind of infer for yourself. So
also true. There is a little bit of the more you look at it, right, the more you learn, the more you can pick up, right? That's what we talk about. The benefit of having you on there, you pay a lot of attention to that, so you can kind of get some of those insights and see some of those things, because just kind of paying attention to how the tool is performing can help you use the tool better, right?
Right.
Yep. All right. Well, that is all of the games that we are going to cover for you today. 7 games, 8 picks. Cousin Jared, any parting words?
No parting words for you today.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can control the sports betting content we provide on this channel, dropped right into your feed. Be back again tomorrow with more college basketball hoops content. And until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.